More about this morning. Absolutely everything worked this morning at 5 o'clock.
Take a two-lane trip.
But the problem is it's now 7 o'clock. So we
Jim Hinckley is America.
visiting with Walt Craig this morning. What's the fancy term? Docent down at...
Yeah, the fancy term is docent. I'm not sure I'd call myself a docent, but basically a tour guide.
Yeah, I understand terminology and words. I used to call myself a resource reclamation engineer. Basically, I tried to find creative ways to collect aluminum cans without getting dirty. But yeah, music from the road crew this morning. We're down here at Calico's restaurant in Kingman. 5 minutes late, but hey.
Is there some significance to the fact that the camera is showing red?
No, shouldn't be.
Oh.
Just should red should be that it's just live.
Oh, okay.
Hey, good morning. How are things doing in Maryland this morning? So, Mr. Walt, the Bonelli House. You know, it's one of those overlooked places here in Kingman, but I have always been fascinated with it. I had the privilege, when I was a kid. I used to work for Irene Kofer next to the Episcopal Church in downtown, and then go over there to the Benellis. About 69 and 70.
The church is across the street from the Bonelli House.
My dad and I tore down the old Episcopal Church and used the lumber.
Well, were you mad at the church?
Well, that's a question, isn't it? How long have you been down there?
Moved to Kingman 4 years ago, 2017, and probably about a year later, I contacted the museum and said I'd like to be a volunteer, and they asked me if I knew anything about giving tours in historical places, and I had been for 6 years a docent at, and they really called themselves docents, at the Mission Inn in Riverside, a historic hotel. And so for some unknown reason, they thought that qualified me to give tours at Kingman's favorite historical house.
Well, you know, the Bonelli House, now that dates to 1915, right?
It does. That was when the house that you tour was built, yes.
Yeah, it is the house always fascinates me. The engineering behind that house, and to think they did this without, just using a pencil, paper, and their head. No computers.
You're right.
And no calculators. And what an incredible piece of engineering to keep the house cool.
They did, yeah, because you don't dig very far into the desert soil before you hit solid concrete. And also in modern houses, everyone knows that hot air rises, cool air falls. If you're paying the electric company for cool air in the summertime, the last place you want it to go is down to the basement. But anyway, so they dug a basement, and they put a special door outside. It's not unlike those entrances that people from the East are accustomed to, where you have the steps going down into the basement from outside. But this was unusual for Kingman, mainly because basements are unusual. And and then they under the stairs going up to the second floor, they built a closet and put a hole in that closet, on the floor in that closet, and put a grill over it. Now, Kingman has what Jim himself often refers to the gentle breezes of 45 miles an hour. And and so we have a lot of wind in Kingman. So they open up that outside entrance to the basement. There's cool into that pantry, And then there are hinges on the steps above that, which allows them to open up the stairway. And then on top of that, at the very top of on the roof, is a cupola with windows that can be opened, and there is a hole in the ceiling so they can push the hot air out. I tell a story about when my wife and I lived in Phoenix, and across the road from us was an old farmhouse that had a tower next to it. And we lived in Phoenix on that day that it hit 122 degrees. It was an old couple that lived in that house. We went over there to check on them. It was cooler in their house with that old-fashioned cooling tower than our air-conditioned house.
Now, the idea behind that with a cupola and to pull the hot air out, something I just flashed on. I wonder if that's why the dome is on the Capitol building.
It doesn't work in the Capitol.
I just wondered, I noticed all these Capitol buildings have a dome on top, and I was wondering if that's pulling the hot air.
Yeah, you notice it doesn't work there.
Doesn't at all. One of the things I like about the Bonelli House, and every time I go there, is the furnishings. Most of the furnishings are original from the
Yes.
period and from the family, but I find things every time I go there, something different clicks. The little portable phonograph. The last time I was there was a little portable phonograph, and I had just been reading the journals from Edsel Ford, his trip in 1915, and he mentioned changing a tire in the Mojave Desert near Ludlow at midnight, and they were listening to their portable phonograph.
Okay.
And I can't help but think, yeah, this is what they're talking about. Still, I can't imagine traveling with phonograph records and phonographs.
Well, this little phonograph you're describing is maybe about 7 inches long, about 4 inches high, and about 3 inches wide. And it folds up into a nice small package. The speaker, of course, is one of those old-fashioned horns.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, when you put a record on the record player, the record is much bigger. It just dwarfs the size of the actual phonograph itself.
I bet you have met some fascinating people. The Bonelli House somehow gets overlooked a lot. Of course, it's about 4 blocks off Route 66 as part of it, but I bet you've met some interesting people, because that house is known for people that has an interest in Western history. And what would you like for breakfast there, Walt? What are you thinking?
I'm going to have the, whoops, I'm on the wrong side. I'm going to have the country Benedict, skip the potatoes, okay?
Would you like some fruit or tomatoes?
No, I don't need anything. That's more than enough.
This on the same ticket or
Yes.
separate ticket? How would you like your eggs on your country?
Oh, just,
Poached?
yeah, right. I hate it when they ask that question because I never know how to answer it.
Right. Well, they automatically come poached, but I always ask just in
Okay.
case you want them a different way.
I'll do your California Benedict.
Hash browns or the country
Yeah,
potatoes?
country potatoes is fine.
Right, let me get that in for you and I'll be right back.
Thank you
gentlemen.
very much.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Well, when you asked me to talk about this, I thought of 3 different encounters. Probably the most significant is that a large family group came in. It may have been 6 or 7 people, maybe more than that. And I started the tour, and we're walking around the house, and every so often they are they're looking at each other and they're nodding and so forth, and I'm thinking, what do these people know that I don't know? And finally I turned to one of them and I said that very question. It says, you know something I don't know? And they said, yes, well, Eddie Benelli was our grandfather. They were actually the members of the Benelli family who had came back to see the house. And the Benellis are always welcome in the house.
Yeah. Well, the family had not only were they pioneers, literal pioneers
Yes.
here, north from Switzerland, right?
Yes, originally. Yes.
From Switzerland, but Route 66 connection too, the Fig Springs station. I just recently posted a picture I found when that was under construction, and I guess they had the Fig Springs Ranch, right out there. You think?
Well, it was part of his ranch. He had George Benelli's principal business was he had a 250,000 acre ranch running from the Virgin River Canyon, which is in the far northwest corner of the state of Arizona. Look on your maps and you'll see how, and then all the way down to where Lake Havasu City is now.
Down towards the Bill Williams River.
Right, and yes, that was a huge ranch.
Have you got? I imagine you meet when you're dealing with the public, you meet all kinds of people in historic places.
I met you.
Well, I don't. Yeah, we're gonna. Well, see, that takes that out. I was going to mention colorful characters, but I don't know about that now. But do you get people in that, even though they know nothing about it, they try to impress the people they're with by telling them that they do?
Oh, you can encounter people like that all the time.
Yeah.
Yes. I've had people who, well, I will describe a certain thing, and they'll say, "Oh, yes. And you remember, we saw something like that at so-and-so's place, and I studied up on it." Yes, you encounter people like that all the time. Yes.
Walt, you exemplify what's so important about volunteering for helping build a sense of community and community purpose, and keeping things like that alive. It's really appreciated.
Well, to me, if you don't know the history of a place and how it got where it is today, you don't really understand what you are and where you're going.
Yeah.
And so it is fascinating to me to look into the history and to be able to understand, why did people do this? Why did they come here? What did they do? What made them want to stay here? With all our gentle breezes, you sort of wonder what was going through their minds.
Well, I question that most every day. Why are people here on purpose? When I was growing up, the story was that the first pioneers, they stopped here and waited for the wind to quit blowing, and they're still here. And
Yes.
the others just broke down here, and inside of 6 months, you realize it's not a bad place. One part of the Bonelli House I've never gotten into is the cellar.
No, and unfortunately, the cellar is not open to visitors. Actually, it's not open to us either. It really is not walkable. Mm-hmm. There are a few parts of the basement that are reputed to be in which you can stand up, but not. Oh, thank you. You really can't stand up or walk around in the basement.
Okay. The other part, another thing in the Benelli House, the clocks.
Oh, yes. Well, now, this is interesting. It turns out that George Benelli, who built the house, was not himself actually a clockmaker. He apparently learned from his parents and grandparents something about clockmaking and watch making, but he never considered himself a clockmaker. But if you think about it, you couldn't possibly be Swiss and not be fascinated with clocks and watches. And he has one of the more interesting clocks is the one in the living room, which you see the minute you walk in the living room. It's approximately 150 years old. It has, there's a long, complicated story as to how he acquired it. It looks like the kind of clock one would expect to find in an old railroad station. And in fact, when he bought it, he didn't have any place to put it because it's such a tall clock. So he did, in fact, put it in the local railroad station on loan. And very fortunately, the railroad station burned down shortly after the Bonelli House itself, which was a replacement to their original house that burned down. The railroad station burned down after George had retrieved the clock, and because he finally had a place to hang it in his new house, the Benelli House.
The other clock that really intrigues me, I know you've got the kitchen clock and whatnot, but the one that in the dining room,
Yes.
that keeps track of the months, the days, and
Yes, the calendar clock.
calendar clock, exactly.
Now, there are different stories about that clock, but one that I read, which is the one I usually repeat because it's the one that's in the official documentation, is that is a clock that was made sometime around the 1860s, and it's clearly a calendar clock. When you look at the clock, you see two separate pieces. They're kind of stuck together in the middle. My first reaction was that you wound the bottom part, which is where the calendar is, and the top part, which is where the clock is. Not true. There is a shaft that runs from the clock part down into the calendar part. Now, it's generally accurate. The time is usually right. The day of the month is usually right, and the month is usually right. Sometimes it gets a little out of whack. The one that is always a little out of whack is the day itself. So when you go on Thursday, it's halfway between Wednesday and Thursday. If you go on Friday, it's halfway between Friday and Saturday, and so forth.
Yeah, that clock really intrigues me a lot. I've always been fascinated by clocks. I don't know why.
So
I generally don't pay much.
of them apart.
I don't pay much attention to time, so it's interesting that clocks fascinate me. But what's the hours down there, Walt? I mean,
The Benelli House is open to the public from 11 in the morning until 2:30 in the afternoon on Thursday through Friday. I know that they would love to be open more than that, but there are just only so many people in Kingman who can devote the time to be there. I'm old enough that I limit myself, so I only give the Bonelli House one day, and that's Thursday. But if I could give them another day, they'd probably open at least one more day.
it's a tremendous place, and it's one of the, and you can get a museum pass down at the Mojave Museum of History and Arts, and for all the museums, the Mojave Museum of History and Arts, the Bonelli House, and the Powerhouse, the Route 66 Museum with its electric vehicle museum, and yeah, the Benelli House I really recommend from like say, there's so many levels of interest there. The construction of the place just fascinates me, and there's so much that could be learned and applied to modern home building here in the Southwest.
Oh, it sure could. Yes, absolutely. The high ceilings, the thick walls.
How thick are those? They got to be 2 foot thick.
They're
All right, I got a,
Oh, wow.
I'm sorry,
Oop.
Country Benedict
great.
and
Oh, thank you.
California Benny.
Oh, ma'am, thank you very
that looks
much.
You're very
fantastic.
welcome.
The walls on the lower part of the house are 18 inches thick, are 24 inches thick. The walls on the upper part of the house are 18 inches thick. One of the more interesting ways of keeping that house cool was that they strung chicken wire from the roof all the way down to the ground level, and allowed vines to grow up there. So there is one picture in the Bonelli House that shows the house. You can't see the house. All you see is the roof, the cupola on top of the roof, and these vines on all four sides of the house.
That's the way I remember it even as a kid, that the vines on the house.
Yes, okay.
I was quite young. I don't remember too much about it, but Mr. Benelli was very personable and friendly. This is a California Benedict. Now, if that doesn't make you hungry,
This is a country Benedict, which basically is a gravy on top of biscuit, bacon, and poached egg. It's delicious.
I was going to go that route, but I wasn't sure the bacon was kosher.
Well,
Sorry.
it could have been kosher bacon. It's just that a matter. But you see, the problem is it's getting really difficult to find kosher pigs.
That's terrible.
Yes, it is. Although I suppose there are. No, we're not going to go there.
What do you have a favorite part of the Bonelli house, or favorite? I mean, something that you really enjoy sharing and showing.
Yes. People throughout the tour, people will ask me what George Benelli did to make a living. And I often say that I save that for the last part of the tour when we return to the living room and we talk about what goes on in the living room. And George Benelli put a safe in the house. And when you walk into the living room, you see a beautiful wool tapestry hanging on the wall. And behind that tapestry is George Benelli's safe. And what is interesting about the tapestry is that that is one of three things in-house that we know have been in that house since 1915 when the house was built. I never tell that story, but what I don't say, I hope they took that tapestry down once in a while and cleaned it, because I touch it all the time.
Well, when I tell you, in the old days, coal stoves and all stuff got really, really bad.
Yes.
That's pretty amazing. I knew that it had been in there for quite a while. I did not realize it was an original to the house. And well, that explains a little bit. It's lost a little of its color, but it looks. It's really that's impressive.
Yeah, and there's quite a story that goes behind that safe, and so. But I want to save that for people
tour.
who come to visit the house, because it's a really interesting story about the safe and what happened after the city of Kingman bought it.
Well, we can't give away all the secrets. That
No.
takes the fun out of it. We won't tease people too much watching us eat our guns. I want to thank you for doing this, Walt. And
My pleasure.
the Bonelli House is also going to be on, obviously, a point of interest on the narrated historic district walking tours that are being developed by Kingman Main Street. You can see a sample tour at Kingman.tours. It'll give you, if you go down just a little bit on the page, the first page, you'll find a link that says sample tour. That'll take you to the Little Red Schoolhouse, give you an idea what we're going to do. And Walt, I haven't, of course, talked to him about this, but he's going to be helping me on putting that point of interest together for on the Bonelli House to make sure.
I have the
it's
feeling
accurate.
I've just been roped into something.
And you thought it was a free breakfast.
You know, I'll be glad to do that. Problem is getting me to shut up.
The problem is that I can do this for hours, even if I'm the only one in the room, and still enjoy myself. So we have two people who don't shut up very well.
Yes.
So it's going to be interesting. We do this in stereo. But Kingman.tours, it's a real interesting project. I'm really excited to be a part of it. And the Bonelli House is going to be an important part of that narrated walking tour downtown Kingman. Folks, I'm sorry we got a late start this morning. I'm glad that you could join us. And we will do this again next Sunday morning. Not sure where, when, with who. It's always a surprise to me. So I guess it'll be a surprise for you too. And don't forget, we have our morning audio podcast tomorrow. Wake Up with Jim at 5:30 Mountain Standard Time. And then if you miss it, it's archived on our Podbean page. So with that said, I'm going to eat these delicious eggs and potatoes, and we will get busy, and we will see everybody.
Bye, y'all.
See y'all next week. Thank you, guys. Vaya con Dios, mi amigos.